So for this week, we're going to be talking about two major topics. One is the development of North Atlantic English Christianity in the 17th century, and then also the development of the Enlightenment movement and how that informs Christianity. When we speak about North Atlantic English Christianity, what I want to try to encompass here is both events that occur within the context of the United Kingdom of Scotland and England and Wales, and then also thinking about the spread of English Christianity to the American colonies. In order to make sense of many of the religious issues at play in that context, we need to think a little bit more about a process that scholars call confessionalization. The confessionalization of both Protestantism in the 17th century and also of Roman Catholicism, which we've already examined in some way with the Council of Trent and its after effects. So to go into some more detail, confessionalization is a process that concerns doctrinal statements and communities that subscribe to them. That is, it is a way of intellectually, doctrinally, and structurally creating distinct Christian bodies into churches, or we could also call them denominations. That is, how do the boundaries harden within Protestantism itself? We've been examining the distinctions of Protestantism with Roman Catholicism over the course of this course. But now, how are these distinctions heightened within Protestantism itself? We call that process confessionalization. So it's the confessions of faith. That is, whether it's the Augsburg Confession that Lutherans would hold to, Genevan Confession that we see with Calvinists, the 39 Articles with Anglicans. One of the key moments of confessionalization and that really hardens a split between various Protestant churches is the Synod of Dort. This is a meeting, a council of the Dutch Reformed Church held in the city of Dort in the years 1618 to 1619. There is a debate within the Dutch Reformed Church and more broadly within Calvinism about how to define and understand predestination. This really crucial and controversial teaching that Calvin articulates. What emerges is a debate between two groups who are trying to understand when predestination happens. One group is superlapsarians. That is, they hold the word lapse here, lapsar, is about the fall of Adam, the first sin. So superlapsarians want to say that God foreordains or predestines all things before creation, that is, before Adam's sin. And before creation, God decreed who would be saved and who would be damned. Another group thinks that goes too far and sees predestination really only functioning within the context of human sin. So we call them infralapsarians, or holding that only after Adam's sin, only after Adam's fall, does God decree who will be saved and who will be damned. That is, predestination only takes effect later. Within the context of the Synod of Dort, a significant dissent is made against the notion of predestination itself by a group called the Remonstrants. That means to remonstrate is to rebuke and to protest. This group is led by a cleric named Jacob Arminius, and the movement named after him is called Arminianism. This group resists the notion of election at all Arminians want to affirm that Christ dies for all people, that all those who believe are saved, and those who freely reject God's grace are damned. So as you begin to listen to that descriptor of how Arminianism operates, you can see pretty quickly how that would fall outside of traditional Reformed theological articulations of election, predestination, and even some questions about how the process of justification by faith alone actually works, and the degree to which there is a freedom of human will to accept or to reject divine grace. The Synod of Dort moves against Arminianism and reaffirms core Calvinist views. And the teaching of the Synod of Dort is often in the English-speaking world summarized with a 5-letter acronym, TULIP. So let's walk our way through TULIP. The first of the 5 points of the Calvinist view is total depravity. That is, all humans are fallen, are within the power of sin, and so they lack the power to believe the gospel of Jesus Christ on their own, and so need the external grace of God made known through the preaching of the gospel in order to realize salvation. Following this is the second point, unconditional election. That is, God's election is a sovereign, unconditional gift of redemption. That is, God chooses to elect. God cannot receive anything from any human person to change or alter God's election. It is a free gift residing only with God. And no one can do anything to merit it. The third point is limited atonement. That is that Christ's salvation is for the elect alone, not for all people everywhere. The fourth point is irresistible grace. That the work of the Holy Spirit will bring about salvation in the elect, and that this work never fails. This loops back to the notion of God's sovereign power. God acts for salvation for the elect. And there can be nothing done to resist this acting. And the fifth and final point, perseverance of the saints. Those who are elected and have come to saving faith are kept in this faith by the sovereign power of God. So as we walk our way through TULIP, we see that the emphasis is on God's total providential power and care for people, and a real emphasis on human inability to choose their salvation, to activate grace, or to change God's behavior. What emerges out of the Synod of Dort is a split between Calvinists and Arminians. So Arminianism begins to develop outside of a Reformed circle now. And there's a split over this question of the irresistibility of God's grace versus a conditional view of grace that Arminians would hold that depends in part on the acts of people. So we're back in some ways to that big debate between Augustine and Pelagius about the nature of the human will and the degree to which it can act in accord with God's grace. This split between Arminians and Calvinists really will then shape the future of Protestant Christianity. Arminian movements like the Methodist movement, parts of Anglicanism, parts of the Baptist movement, and then later on into Pentecostalism, will be really shaped by this event that happens at the Synod of Dort. So let's keep this in mind, and let's also see this as an example of how confessionalization works and how its activation helps to concretize discrete church bodies that will develop into denominations.